Hello everyone and welcome to Lesson 16, Impact of Illiteracy. So just a bit of an overview for our Collaborate time. We're going to be talking about the impact of literacy and the impact of illiteracy from a world, from a US, from a Canada, and from a medicine hat point of view. So just keep that in mind as we go through this lecture and the next one, and we'll have a bit of a time to have some discussion about that in our next time together. Okay, so imagine not being able to read a prescription drug label, open a bank account or get a credit card, read street signs or navigate public transportation, understand job directions, receive or respond to a text, bring home exact food items for a recipe because you could not read the labels, surf the web for product information, order from a menu, or read a children's book. Okay, I think because of where we are in our position in life, where we went to school, we obviously learned how to read, you are here, that the idea of not being able to read and communicate in a written format seems quite foreign to us. But ultimately, it's not foreign to a lot of people, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, so there are a lot of videos today because I think that they really, it's good to see actual people dealing with illiteracy. So there's going to be lots of breaks where you go and watch the video. So what I want you to do right now is, this is a bit of a look at reality of illiteracy in the United States. So stop me, watch this video from about 0 to 205, and again, keep some notes so that when we get into our discussion, you can have a nice, rich discussion. Okay, kind of interesting, isn't it? That is Detroit in the US and the impact that illiteracy has on the individual and the city. Okay, we need to define a couple terms here because just so that you know kind of what I am talking about. There are two terms, functional illiteracy and then illiteracy. So functional literacy is when you have reading and writing skills that are inadequate to manage daily living and employment tasks that require reading skills beyond a basic level. So that's functional illiteracy. And complete illiteracy is the inability to read or write sentences in any language. So again, today we're going to mainly be talking about kind of a mixture between these two. So probably leaning more to functional illiteracy, but instead of always saying functional literacy, I probably will say illiteracy. But it's sort of this combination of having some skills to get by on a daily basis, but not enough to really go much beyond the basics. Okay, again, what I want you to do is I want you to watch this video here. This, again, is a video about Cleo, who's 53 years of age, and this, just watch and look at the impact that being illiterate has on an individual in the United States. Okay, so go watch Cleo and come on back. Isn't it sad? I'm so sad for Cleo. So sad that that's been her life, and that is because of her inability to read or her illiteracy. It's kind of amazing and scary all wrapped together. Okay, let's look at some stats on illiteracy in the US because some numbers are always fun to look at. So there are 13 books per child in high-income areas and 1 book for every 300 children in low-income areas. 13 books per child in high-income areas and 1 book for every 300 children in low-income areas. So you're starting to put together probably that in low-income areas, literacy rates are lower or illiteracy rates are higher. 55% of illiterate adults are high school dropouts, and high school dropout rate is at 30%, with dropout rate being 50% for Hispanic and African Americans. Most juvenile crime is committed by high school dropouts. 85% of juvenile offenders have problems with reading, writing, and basic math. And most inmates, 65%, cannot read or write. Now, some would say that that is actually the cause of the crime because they cannot get a job that will pay, so they are forced to resort to crime. That might be a bit of a stretch, but it is interesting to think about that the impact of being illiterate can cause your life to go in such a direction that you would end up committing crimes and then end up being incarcerated. So again, some really impactful and scary stats around illiteracy. Okay, a few more. 72 million adult Americans cannot read or write above a fifth grade level. Illiteracy costs the US over $225 billion annually. In crime, lost taxes, so people just don't pay their taxes. Going back to crime, think about jails and institutions. Those are expensive. Those are really expensive. And if we didn't have any criminals in the institutions, because they could read and get a job, they would pay taxes. And so you can see how all of that is all wrapped up in an economic situation. So crime, lost taxes, welfare payments, and job incompetence. So not being able to read the instructions, maybe then they don't work the machine properly and wreck the machine, and so then the company has to pay for a new machine. Okay, and the US ranks 26th in the United Nations literacy poll on literacy. Okay, so again, stop and watch this example of illiteracy in America on the ABC newscast, and it's pretty frightening, again, how people's individual lives are being impacted because of their inability to read and write, and then how that ultimately, what we looked at last week around literacy effects, like the social, the political, the economic, and how then that impacts all those aspects around the country. So again, stop here and watch this ABC newscast. Okay, isn't that ABC newscast super interesting? What some people let happen to them because they were so embarrassed, and it's real. It's a real embarrassment, and it's a real it's part of these people's sort of everyday interaction with society. Think about the pressure and the energy that would just go into covering that you couldn't read. So, okay, so before we get too sort of high on our own horse and being like, well, the US, there's all these crazy things. Let's bring it closer to home. Let's bring it to Canada as a nation. So this is when we look again, when we look at literacy rates in Canada, when we look on a global place, we see that literacy rates are high in Canada. About 97% of adults are literate. So we go, hey, that's pretty good, 97%. But I want to kind of situate that number a little bit for you. So I'm just going to read this from the Globe and Mail in 2018. Literacy rates in Canada are high, around 97%, but there is debate about what that measure really means. Ideas about literacy have shifted, and while measures once focused on a person's ability to decipher characters and read text, the bar has been raised to consider economic productivity. Again, with the computer age, with just so much text coming at us all the time, it's just the bar is so much higher than it used to be for the need to be able to not only read text, but to comprehend text and to catch all of the subtle nuances that go with text. Okay, so there's learning to read, and then there's reading to learn. So that's that grade 3 switch where they're learning to read in K1 and 2, and then they switch to reading to learn. Says Margaret Eaton, president of ABC Life Literacy Canada, not enough Canadians have that skill, the reading to learn. In 2008, her organization authored a report that raised concerns about whether Canadians, including those who have graduated high school, can read well enough to be comfortable with new written information or doing computer work. The report relied on Statistics Canada data that showed 48% of adults aged 16 and older didn't have the literacy skills needed for the working world. So now we're looking at different numbers, right? That 97% isn't quite so shiny as it used to be. Where am I? The report noted that while many were new immigrants, native-born Canadians with high school diplomas also had difficulties. So think back to Cleo. She had a high school diploma, and yet she could not read. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a look at some of these statistics, because I went, okay, let's dig a little bit. So these are the stats on illiteracy in Canada. So I went to the Government of Canada statistics website, and in 2013, which is the last kind of major survey on this particular topic, they found that 50% of the general population tested in PIAC on the PIAC scale scored at or below level 2 on a 5-level literacy scale. So a lot of these people came from Indigenous people, youth, newcomers, and official language minority communities. However, let's look here at what level 2 is on the 5-point level scale. So level 1 is they can read brief text on familiar topics to locate a single piece of specific information. So think about even how many texts or emails or websites you have looked at today, and could you have actually understood what was going on when you could only locate a single piece of specific information. And level 1 is also only basic vocab knowledge is required. Okay, level 1 here, oh sorry, that's below level 1. So level 1 here is read relatively short digital or print. Continuous, so continuous print. Knowledge and skills in recognizing basic vocab and determining the meaning of sentences and reading paragraphs of text is expected. Okay, so let's look at level 2, because if we go back here, we have 50% of our population is level 2 or below. So this is level 2. Make matches between the text and information and may require paraphrasing or low-level inferences. Some competing pieces of information may be present. Some tasks require the respondent to, and then go through these. Okay, so you can see that this is not really super high level text comprehension or understanding of vocabulary. Level 3 is tasks require the respondent to identify, interpret, or evaluate one or more pieces of information. So now this is the upper 50%. Level 4, complex inferences, and level 5, evaluate and frequently look at high-level inferences. Oh, sorry, evaluate in here. So this is where we would be here. We would be, as college graduates, we would be in level 4 and 5. Okay, let's go down to another. So this is where I got this from. So if you're interested in looking up stats and you're that kind of person who's super interested in stats, that's where I got it from. And again, this is stats on illiteracy in Canada. So what does illiteracy in Canada look like on a daily basis?